and that's about it. So that is about it. So then I started, when I moved to USA, I founded my company, Beauty Conscious, and I said, I'm going to start coaching. I'm going to start helping people cope with this issue because stress makes so many conditions worse. It makes acne worse, psoriasis worse, so any autoimmune disorder, anything to do with skin. If a person is stressed, so it's kind of a vicious circle. The skin, the mind, and everything. So I promote that hypnosis, biofeedback. I try to tell people that look after your skin because it's your largest organ, but then also it's a part of your entire holistic approach. So it's your mind, it's your skin, it's everything. And then people just are pretty amazed because when you are relaxed, when you are practicing these meditative therapies, biofeedback, and all of that, it's remarkable how the skin visually improves. So there's an actual improvement in the level of, the skin disease. It actually kind of improves as a person is more relaxed, which is very interesting. So there are actually connections from your brain and your nervous system that are actually happening on the surface of your skin. So we have receptors, neuroreceptors on the skin. And if you're stressed, the brain tells your skin that, hey, something is not right, and your skin is going to become really, really bad. So you'll have a worsening of rosacea, worsening of acne. So this thing is something so important to me because I want to not only take care of people on a skin level, but also on a mindful level. So that's where I came up with Skinfulness. And that's what I do on Instagram. I try and promote relaxation therapies, whatever that a person can do to bring their stress levels down, that's going to help them on a holistic level to take care of their skin.
That's great. We'll get more into the discussion around skin, but before that, I'd like to quickly introduce our other guest speakers for today, Rafi Ahmed, who happens to be the incubation lead at CCIT in Innovation Liaison here at AKU. And he's also the co-author for Chapter 4, Incubation, which we'll be discussing today. Good to have you here, Rafi.
Thank you, Mary. It's great to be here.
All right. And then Mohsin. Hi, Mohsin. So Mohsin Mehman. Hi. So Mohsin Mehman is a biomedical engineer, and currently he's pursuing his master's from the Nust University in Islamabad. Mohsin's also co-authored the chapter on incubation along with Rafi. So welcome to our webinar, Mohsin.
Thank you, Mary.
And now we'll return to our discussion. I'll hand over the mic to Asid. Over to you.
Thank you, Mary. So this is interesting, right? So I was thinking, typically what we've done in these webinars is that we start off and I kind of like talk a bit about the book, right? And so I'm not going to do that because I think Marian has already kind of got us into this startup mentality, and Ansul with her own experience of derm skin products has already kind of like put us right in the center of startup kind of mentality or startup phase. So I was thinking, how do I like kind of bring in Rafi and Mohsin and the chapter that they've written? So I'm going to throw this question to both Rafi and Mohsin, and maybe one at a time. You can tell us. So so Ansul's given her example of like she was passionate about a problem that she had identified, that skin is not just beauty is not just skin deep, if I may, right? So the skin is much more than just superficial, just the organ itself, and people tend to like look at the superficial, the surface aspect of it, but it's a lot more. And so this skinfulness, and which I thought was a fascinating concept. So here's an individual who empathized with individuals, with her patients, with people who might not have even been her patients. So she was very empathetic. And as a starting point, we have learned through CCIT that empathy is exceedingly important. I'm a physician. Empathy is really important as a physician. But this kind of empathy we're talking about to understand what the client's issues are or the client's problems are, really to understand those problems, right? So over to you, Rafi. How do you see your experience as an innovator, entrepreneur through the empathy lens, and put us and talk about startups through the startup lens? And then perhaps we can move on to Mohsen, and Mohsen can then tell us through the chapter itself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely right. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And, to your earlier observation, how we could tie in Dr. Ansul's work with her brand QT Conscious, with our experience, at a small early stage startup incubator at AKU, I think there's a very natural synergy there. Dr. Ansul, in your introduction, what really struck out to me was how you're really making the less explicitly known markers in terms of maintaining a certain sense of Dharma health, whether that's to do with mindfulness, whether that's to do with being calm, eradicating certain stress from your lives. I mean, that to me, or I think to your average consumer or user, is probably not explicit. When they think about dermatology, they're probably focusing on a very narrow clinical, pathway and how to address certain derma-related, issues. But then to associate that with, say, meditation is something that I think is, it requires a great deal of lateral thinking, not only to identify that correlation and, establish it as a relevant item to consider, but also then to design and develop an intervention around those less explicitly known factors. And I think that's essentially what we started off as our guiding principle. How can we think laterally? Asad, and naturally, given his focus and expertise in human-centered design thinking, tends to associate this with empathy. But from a startup perspective, it's just your ability to think laterally and to see how the dots connect. And how less explicitly known entities directly tie in with what your problem is, what your problem hypothesis is. And then having identified that, developing a service around that, which makes it so obvious. When I was hearing you speak, it was so obvious, like, duh, of course, mindfulness and derma care correlated. But before hearing you, I would not have been able to make that association.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That was really good. Thank you for that, Rafe. And let's get Mohsen in as well, right? So Mohsen, given what Ansul was talking about her experience, how did she get interested and involved in skin products and being very entrepreneurial from that perspective and a problem solver, empathizing. What did you learn through the fellowship, let's say, Mohsen, that you were one of our first innovation fellows? And what about incubation caught your imagination and then you were willing to work on that chapter? I might have rephrased the question or repurposed the question, but it's along the same spectrum, I think.
Yeah. So when I think about incubation, or when I think about businesses or startups at a smaller scale, I go back to thinking that when I started thinking about this, and the first thing I remember was early university, and most of the seniors would come and say, यार नौकरी नहीं होती, ये नहीं होता, etc., unemployability and all. Then my answer generally would be, then why don't you just start working? You are an engineer, you can start working on a project and you can sell it to the market. By this time I was not familiar with the startup world and the incubation world. And as I grew deeper into solving problems, my answer would always be, there's a problem, why are you complaining? Just go and solve it. That's if you have a largest problem is unemployability, then simplest, largest answer is go and solve it. And that's how I got into this world of startups, where students are trying to solve problems. The students, they identify a problem, they know this is a problem, let's try to solve. We have this kind of capabilities, let's go and hit it. If we can do it, that's good. Otherwise, we're getting experience anyways. If you get something to write down, you get something experience that you can tell your employer later on that, okay, I got this, I can work on things. That's how I see startups. So when Ansul says the skin being your largest organ, that's what shows you. I say startups are biggest solution to the problem that being unemployability, and they give you the simple representation. And I remember from my interview when you were interviewing me for the innovation fellowship, and you asked me, oh, so you started this company called ABM Brain Solutions, and you did earn from it or what? My answer was like, okay, I haven't earned from it. Like I haven't earned in monetary terms, but I can share my experience of the startup, experience of starting it, experience of getting seed funding, experience of going through the SCP, that is regulatory side, going through the legal side of it, then going through the engineering phase of it, then developing a product which I was also integrated with my FYP. So I had all led in front of me. So that was okay. I have something that is very good for me. Although I haven't earned even a single rupee, I haven't made a single rupee profit, but I had something to show. So that's what
Yeah.
is the solution to me. So hence I am into it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Why I'm into it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mohsen. So I'll keep all of that in mind, and then let's get into the discussion a bit further, right? So um, specifically about derm products, and I'm not a dermatologist, and I'm not into skin products, but because of Ansul's work, and then I was reading through a bio, and I was looking at some of the products as well online, and I was getting really intrigued. I've seen these skin products I was going to say like women's dresses. Sorry, okay. Men as well. Let's not be sexist or feminist about it.
Yes.
But I was just thinking, oh, my mothers or my wives. Okay, maybe one of them, like, these lotions, and I keep wondering, what's this like? What's
Ocean.
how they different? How they everything's a lotion for me. Lotion hair. So I just use petroleum jelly for everything.
This is too funny.
So answer my question is that for QT conscious, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about QT conscious and about the name QT conscious as well. So it's not CUT So it's like CUTI conscious, right? So first of all that, and then it claims to have humane skincare products, and you work with biomimetics. Tell us more about biomimetics. And as a startup, when you talk about delving into products of this nature, our experience of startups hasn't really been R&D. And when you talk about biomimetics, I think it's more R&D related as well, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us about all of those things, please.
Definitely. Well, I was very, very interested. I love biochemistry and I love molecules. So as a clinician, when I was working, it was just fascinating to me that how these interactions happen. Then when I started QT Conscious, my aim was to have kind of an area where I could coach people who are starting up their businesses. A lot of people from different walks of life, they didn't know anything about the science. So I wanted to coach them and bring them kind of, I have to teach them about the science, about the biodynamics of the skin, because a lot of these people who start these skincare businesses, they don't have a clue about what's happening. So then I said that, look, I have to step in. I have to bring some order to this chaos because, like I said, this saying that everything is lotions. But the interesting thing is that the skin is such an interesting organ that, believe it or not, it contains hormone receptors, stress receptors, various kinds of receptors, including CBD. I don't know if you guys have heard of cannabis oil. So you have cannabis and retinol receptors that are actually present on the skin. So when you apply something topically, it is very interesting that when you apply something topically, so if you have, for instance, a CBD oil or a CBD based lotion or a cream or an ointment or whatever the vehicle is, you will actually feel a sense of well-being because those receptors are being stimulated on the surface of your keratinocytes on your skin, and they're relaying that information to your body and brain. So therefore, when you apply things, it's not just making you beautiful, it's also relaxing you because there are a lot of things that are happening in the skin that we don't see because it's obviously we don't see it, it's at a microscopic level. But those receptors are being stimulated. Now, when biomimetic comes in, that is when you have things and molecules that are identical. So they're identical to the molecules within your own skin. So for instance, if I'm going to take, let me take a really simple example, hyaluronic acid. So that is one of the most commonest molecules that is present in your skin. Collagen, hyaluronic acid, these are plumping molecules. They are what keep you youthful. As we grow old, these decline. So then what do? Then we are going to try to, number one, create things that are going to replace this loss. So it's going to be in the form of injectables and fillers, and that is a more physical approach. It's a more invasive approach. Topically, what we can do, we can create or we can find molecules that the skin recognizes. So it's a matter of identity recognition. When you recognize something, it's easier to accept it. There's a less kind of a load, so to speak, on the system or on your body. So when we create creams and ointments and lotions that have that capability of being bioidentical, meaning the skin is able to recognize it. When the skin recognizes something, it accepts it. And that's when you start seeing biological benefits. Now, this doesn't happen in cosmetics because by definition, cosmetics are something that are going to beautify you. They're going to make you look better. They're going to, calm your skin down. But what I did was I kind of bridged the medical aspect of it with the cosmetics. So then you come into cosmeceuticals. So then what I try to do is I try to bring these biologically kind of, I would say, more functional ingredients into cosmetics. So when people apply that topical, they actually see real-time benefit. And it's amazing how a formulation can change a person's life because within a matter of few weeks, now it takes time, within a matter of few weeks, I mean, lives are changed because you don't have that rash anymore. Your skin is identifying with that molecule and that product and that formulation that you're applying on your skin. They feel better, their symptoms go down because the skin is now identifying with those molecules. So when I create a formulation and we go into R&D, I make sure that majority of the molecules that we use are bioidentical because I don't want to put a stress on the skin. So if I put something totally foreign on the skin, it has to work that much harder to accept it. So why not give something to your skin that it already innately and genetically, and I would say primordially, I mean, prehistorically, it will recognize. It recognizes it, it accepts it, and then you start seeing the benefits. So this is something that's been fascinated. I've been fascinated by this all my life. So I said, I'm going to do this. And then slowly started working with brands. I was approached by really, really great people from all over the world, brand owners, established, and then of course startups as well, where I become their coach and I coach them for years. So I work with brands, some of them, they have become my good friends and we stay together for years and years and I'm their coach. Together we bring out these amazing molecules and these products that help people all over the world. I'm not at liberty to say, of course, the people that I work with, but there are some great brands and they're very sincere. And it's not only for beautification, but it's helping people on a deeper level. So it's helping them spiritually as well. It's making them happy because when a person looks good, they feel good. And believe it or not, we are coded genetically for beauty. So sometimes we think that, everything is skincare is all about vanity and beauty is all about that, but it's not, because we are genetically coded for beauty. When we see something beautiful, we have those happy chemicals being released into our body, and we have those dopamines and those serotonins, and they're all being released. And person is feeling happy. So when we see a pleasant image, we automatically feel good. And so this is what I do, and this is on a very, I would say, spiritual level for me because I love that aspect of healing. I mean, that is what drives me. So healing, whether it be in the form of formulation or talking to somebody, coaching somebody, healing is the main thing. And I can achieve that through advanced biomimetic or bioidentical formulations, which is so fascinating to me, that just by this kind of formulation or this kind of product, I can make a difference in somebody's life. And I mean, it seems really minor, but actually it's not, because it really does make a difference in people's lives. And they just come back and tell me that, oh my God, we applied this and your formulation, and it's doing wonders for us. We feel happy. We want to go out. We want to make friends. We want to have girlfriends and boyfriends or whatever. They want to go back to their social life. And this is just happening with one kind of molecule.
That I'm speechless. Kind of like that was an amazing description. I haven't heard of biomimetics. I haven't read about them, but the way you've kind of taken us through this journey of yours, and how and why these molecules are so important to you, what you've learned from them, and it's about healing. And so I'm just going to like kind of reflect on that and let people also reflect on that, because I think that's exceedingly important. We get caught up in revenues and how the startup is doing and how much money is it generating. And you seem to be saying not so much about because I haven't asked you about where's the money here, but your drive or your passion seems to be to help people, and that's what my working definition of entrepreneurship has become as well, or entrepreneurship for that matter. So because we're trying to solve problems, and we're keeping people at the center of our problem solving. We're not and keeping people empowered through the process versus making them irrelevant. So when you talk about these molecules and how important they could be for people's well-being, I'm completely sold to the idea. And CBD oil, that's stuck in my head. Okay, since the moment you mentioned CBD,
I knew it.
like CBD, and I need where's my CBD oil? No more smoking. No more smoking CBD oil. I think only just like put it on your skin and relax and go to sleep and go to bed, like have a very nice sleep and not have insomnia, which I'm trying best. Marine, please hack that problem of mine, my insomnia. And so CBD oil is the answer. Anyways, but I'm gonna ask Rafe to actually, based on his experience he's been working at AKU for several years, and his expertise area is innovation, liaisoning, incubation, so getting people connected and helping innovation along that spectrum. So Rafe, the question to you is that if somebody were to come to you from, let's say, from within AKU, and they bring to you something like like R&D related, like working on a molecule or working on stem cells, and the problem that they're dealing with, and the solution associated with that is more R&D related, but they're interested in a startup. So how would you guide them? Because our experience through CCIT has been, I think, early stage incubation and not so much R&D related, where we're dealing with molecules. So how would you say that we have the ability, capacity, now that we understand this whole pre-ideation, ideation, incubation, acceleration business?
Yeah, absolutely, Asad. And really, they're in broad strokes, there are really two types of stakeholders, two types of clients that we would engage with. There would be, someone with entrepreneurial ambition who not only has done the R&D, but also has a vision to translate that into some sort of application, bring that to market. But then the second type of clientele could be those that are natural scientists and they're purists. They're only really interested in the research and the discovery, and they leave to others to decide the application and the commercialization potential. And to the second type are those that may benefit through some sort of royalty agreements should the technology that they've developed get commercialized. But speaking on incubation, let's really talk about the first personality, the entrepreneur, the R&D, the researcher, the scientist who has entrepreneurial ambition. And Dr. Ansel, if I may, I'll take your example here. When you were speaking, there were several touch points and very diverse functions that had to come together for, I suppose, QT Conscious to become a viable or a household brand name.
Yeah.
Obviously, the technical R&D, so there was a great deal of technical expertise that you demonstrated in discovering how certain things can work and what doesn't work. But then when you move to the downstream, there's a bit of business savviness, which you also as an entrepreneur had to take certain responsibility of.
Yes.
And that really is what sets apart the first, client from the second client. And they're completely two different personalities. So it's not just the technical R&D, it's the business savviness. And those two things I feel come later. Before that, what is your purpose? And your purpose was naturally tied into, making people feel better, not just about themselves, but, also identifying that the aesthetics play a huge part in how people feel. So there's that spiritual purpose and how you were able to then translate that into some sort of tunnel vision. So I think in terms of, I'm sorry, Asad, I've perhaps digressed from the question, but in order to be a successful entrepreneur, I think as an incubation service provider, we don't make entrepreneurs. We can only help them connect the dots. Entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurship is innate. We can't really instill entrepreneurship principles into the people who come to us. But the folks that have been very successful, like Dr. Ansel, have demonstrated those abilities to think laterally and to really do a bit of everything. Do a bit of everything to a point where they're able to bring in diverse skills towards a product, get that product to some sort of readiness, and then very quickly from that point, learn how to then manage and build a team to scale. So then you then translate away from doing the gritty technical or the business stuff, and then through others implementing your vision. And I think doing for others and in the service of others is paramount. Because without that, the sense of fulfillment from material revenues tends to, peak off very quickly. Yes. And then you need that additional sustenance, which is most definitely to be in the service of others. So 100% resonate with that, Dr. Ansel.
Beautiful, Rafi. Yeah, very well put.
So great. So Rafi, I think the way that you've kind of mentioned, right, about different kinds of potential clients, right, and how far along, how much work one needs to put in to keep developing that incubation, or sorry, their startup. I was kind of being specific about AKU given our work experience over there. And because we haven't really got into startups of that kind that Ansel runs and develops and works on molecules, but never say never. I think people sooner or later probably will come to you, and then then you can have a kind of help them decide further, whether you want to just send them to one of the faculty members who are already working on something, perhaps so they're running a clinical trial. And this student who's really fascinated or interested in a skin-based product, then they can work with the faculty member. We could always just connect them to Ansel, right? Because she's very good at mentoring as well, right? So something like that. So as Rafi, I think Rafi's role is to connect people, and whether that project or startup then keeps building up or not, I think that becomes secondary. To at least, I don't think we can kind of push each and every thing past a certain point, but this has been a very interesting connection between the kind of work, Ansel, that you're doing, and possibility of startups that we are also our experience of startups at AKU. So we'll keep this in mind. Mohsin, I'm just going to ask you to kind of comment or reflect on the experience of writing this chapter. And you worked with Rafi on this, and so you could perhaps give us a bit more, your the inside story. How was it to work on this chapter with Rafi? Was he a slave driver, or was I the slave driver as the editor of the book, or was Rafe the slave driver? That, and secondly, tell us, how do you think this chapter can benefit people, be those students, professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, none of the above, all of the above, for their own ventures and startups? But use the chapter as your starting point.
Okay. So when it comes to chapter, I would start from when the idea of the chapter, like idea was born that, okay, we're going to write about the incubation. So Rafe, from the starting, was very clear that we have to write about what CCIT, how CCIT started with the incubation, and how Rafe started CCIT, and how our first cohort went, and how we went on improvising, on improving, on like, or not if improving, then for the sake of a better word, how we changed or pivoted from one cohort to another cohort, how cohorts were led by the hackathons. So idea for the chapter was very much clear. So at the very first meeting, I could have had, I had the rough idea what the chapter at the end would look like. And then Rafe was really nice with me. He told me, we sat down, we discussed the entire idea. Rafe had mentored me earlier about the entire entrepreneurship journey and the entire entrepreneurial course that we have. So I had already been through that. So Rafe asked me if I can go about the content. I was like, yeah, fine, we can go about it. We went with the first draft. Yeah, obviously there were like modifications and modifications on top of it, but it was always how CCIT started, how CCIT improved. It was, okay, and it connects to second point, how the students can benefit from it. The chapter includes all the details of the first cohort, second cohort, third cohort. So if you read the chapter, you don't actually then you don't need to enroll for an entrepreneurship course. You already have that. You get the gist of it. Then on top of that, you get the gist of 5 cohorts rather than one only that you can enroll in. And then you see the examples of the of the incubators that we had enrolled. Some of those got successful. Some of them are currently running business. We had to mention it. We mentioned them, and some of them got patents. We had to mention that. So how their journey went on, what process they went through, how those incubators kept it to it. So that can be a really good motivation for any student who reads the chapter, and he can learn from the past 5 course, 5 journeys that we have already mentioned in the chapter. So yeah, that for any newbie who want to start learning about incubation, so rather than going through a course himself, he can go through the chapter and get the experience of 5 in just one chapter.
That's great. Thank you. So I never thought about it from that perspective, but thank you very much for that, Mohsen. I think that's a very good point, that for someone reading the chapter, they're getting the experience of multiple cohorts, multiple iterations, and how Rafe's cohort programming of the incubation programming, how he was thinking about it, how to iterate on it, how to, what worked, what did not work. And so you have that experience of multiple cohorts versus just one. Great point.
And also, if someone wants to start his own incubator, he can learn from our journey already. So when he's starting, he has something already to begin with. So okay, you're not starting from the ground zero. You already have some raw material to begin with. For if anyone is not into startup but building an incubator from the scratch, the chapter is good for that person as well.
And that's our objective through all of those chapters as well, that they become toolkits for anybody else who wants to implement. And then so they can adapt as well. That's the purpose as well. You don't follow each and everything from alpha to omega, but you can adapt and iterate and do it even better than what we've done, right? So it's not that we're saying that we're experts and then we know it. We've done it all. And so yeah, good point. So Eamon has put a comment over here, and I'll just request Eamon to kind of, she can unmute herself and she can just say this out. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to put in the chat box, and then we'll just continue.
Okay.
Eamon, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in my opinion, the clinical research and the entrepreneurships are having the same root. The thing I learned in the incubation cycle in in 2019 from CCIT is the same which I have learned later on in my critical appraisal. The critical appraisal is for the thesis, and I found the same thing: the customer market survey, the literature review, and the survey, the questionnaire we formed for to find out how much the product is needed, what's the subject, and what the supply and what the demands. So I put all these things in my thesis. Okay, so what's the customer demand is like the, okay, there is very much musculoskeletal disorders among residents, so I have some meetings with the residents, and by doing my thesis, it seems like I'm doing another startup. So I found the same. The literature review is same. The customer niche, the market survey is same. So that's I found in being a incubating and being a medical student in AK.
Great, thank you, Eamon. That's such a valuable point, I think, and because for those of you who don't know, Eamon was from a first batch of innovation fellows, and Eamon is currently enrolled in the masters in epidemiology.
Yeah, biostats and epidemiology.
Right, and so Eamon is at the tail end of her masters, and so from her own research experience, I guess she's making those connections, which is also creativity, by the way, Eamon, because you're in two different areas and you're connecting them, and so making those connections and actually making them work is, I think, is a very creative thing. So kudos to that, to you for that. And so I've also kind of learned that while I've also delved more and more into innovation and creativity, I think there are definite advantages to my background, having background in clinical research. So I'm a clinical researcher. So the ability to critically think and to question. We don't. What we perhaps are not doing the same way is that we don't have necessarily a research question or a hypothesis that we are testing in entrepreneurship. We're more implementers as innovators, versus in clinical research, we tend to start off everything with a clinical with a question that we want to address through the clinical study design or have a hypothesis. So I'm going to, and this is such a good point. Thank you very much for this, Eamon. So Ansul, because you're a physician, you're a and you delve into dermatology. You're a dermatologist, and you're an entrepreneur, and you're several other things as well. But based on your entrepreneurship, how important do you think is this point about clinical research? Do you have the capacity or the bandwidth to be a clinical researcher as well for the biomimetics, for example, or you go with what's published for these molecules and then you encourage them in the market? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I can obviously delve into the research side of things as well. But then what happens is that because we work with chemists and a lot of pretty big institutions and labs, so what we do there is that we conduct our independent studies. Because the thing with a lot of the cosmetics is that you don't really go into hardcore research. So it's more of like testing the end product on, for efficacy, for talks and studies and all of that. So for any reactions, any adverse reactions. So this is more of what I do. So it's basically the end. So we do have a molecule and then we work around that molecule. But then often what happens is that those molecules are not very well studied. So then we conduct our independent lab studies and then we find out that, wow, this is, in 30 days or whatever, a study period that we're going to conduct, we find out that, okay, this is like really beneficial and this is really helping. So this is more, for me, it's an end result. So we pick up a molecule and then we implement that, we take that, and then we include that as a part of our formulation. So that's, I would say, not as much as research, but more of clinical testing. So it would be more of a study, that when we can just get a pool of patients and then, or volunteers, and then we test that product on them. So I don't know if that can be included in research or it's a part of research, but it's more of, the end product that we're testing, but not per se like research. But then I do love to join hands with my chemists, and sometimes we do test novel peptides, novel growth factors that potentially can have a lot of benefit for the skin. But those molecules have already been present in medicine. So what we're doing is extracting those molecules from medicine and then applying them to topical formulations, which is like really interesting because then there's a link between dermatotherapy. So topical therapy, because a lot of the skin diseases, believe it or not, can be cured topically, like transdermally, transcutaneously. You don't even have to go for oral therapy. In severe cases, naturally you require oral therapy, but majority of the skin disorders can be helped by topical therapy. So therefore we get those molecules, we test them, we see them, that can we apply them. Some of the, like I'm working with a brand from the past 2-3 years. So we have taken a molecule from regenerative medicine. So that molecule has been around for a long time, but it has not been applied clinically. So we haven't like used it in a cosmetic. So that's what fascinated me, because now we're kind of linking regenerative medicine, and then we're coming into the landscape of cosmeceuticals, which is really, really fascinating, because then you don't have a drug, but then you have something that is drug-like, which I really find interesting. So that's a molecule, and it is behaving like a drug, and we're not allowed to say that. So in my world, we don't say it's a drug, but it's behaving like a drug because it is actually a regenerative molecule. So how do we apply that molecule in a product, in a viable product that is going to be stable and it's not going to oxidize or destabilize? How do we apply that molecule to a product or to an ointment or something? And so that's what I do. That's what I do. I try to bridge, I try to kind of bring medicine. So I bring the medical side of biochemistry and pharmacology, and then I apply it to my, and the people who are using it, they don't know. See, they don't know that what's going on into this little bottle you have in your hand. They don't know what's happening, but it's months and months of research, months and months of research, R&D, of testing. Now, unfortunately, a lot, I don't want to put anybody down, but the thing is, a lot of the times cosmetics is taken very lightly. So you just have people coming from all walks of life, and they just start a business and they think that this is really good because we can just have a product, it's going to sell, it's going to make you feel good, it's going to, you know, make your skin lighter, or whatever concepts they have of beauty, and that's about it. But the thing is that it's not it, because there's a lot. If you have really hardcore high advanced products, they really have benefits, because we are actually putting in a lot of research into it. A lot of molecular research is going into it. And that's when you have a beneficial product. So that is what you see in a small bottle all the time, always. It's not always just a cream. There's a whole biochemistry, there's a whole world going on inside that little bottle that you're going to apply on your face or body or whatever.
Fascinating. That is really, actually, I think that's really cool. And we could literally like just kind of like branch off into another hour and just talk about these molecules, and maybe at a later point we could just call you back and just talk about this, and have more people from the relevant departments at AKU listen to this. I've never delved into these kinds of things, but just your fascination and your understanding of these molecules. I was just wondering, Ansel, do you think like people who work with these small molecules, do they have like these chemistry labs at home, and then they tinker with these molecules at home, or like, I wouldn't call it like chemist.
Well, there are a lot of cottage industries. I mean, this is like such a fascinating thing, because you have those cottage industries, they're sitting at home in their kitchens and they're making up these, Hakeem kind of things and concoctions, and they're just saying, oh, you just apply that. The thing with advanced cosmeceuticals is that you cannot create it in your own kitchen or your own home. You actually require a proper advanced lab. You require centrifugation equipment, you require mixers, testing, then all of those toxicology studies, microbiology biology studies that we have to put everything through. So it's actually a pretty advanced and a pretty sophisticated process. But then, of course, you do have those cottage industries that they're taking turmeric and they're taking, oatmeal and things like that, and they're just making, potions at home. So that's what I really don't do. So for me, it's more about, everything is more about advanced. So advanced therapeutics, advanced molecules, and that is a proper billion-dollar lab, so to speak. So they're pretty extensive labs, where we are isolating these molecules.
Great, thank you for that. And you also obviously just dashed my hopes as well. I want start tinkering at home, but I'll do that. So Hasib, Hasib has a question, and I think we should ask perhaps Rafe, if you want to address the question. How do you kickstart innovation through entrepreneurship if you have plenty of ideas, but the regular work culture at your company isn't adaptive or innovative and stale instead?
I think that's a great question. And I think the modern day workplace has developed a system through which it can value and increase incentives around entrepreneurship. If you were to look at your traditional organizational structures, they tend to be pyramid bound. And within that pyramid, people, especially within the lower areas of that pyramid, aren't very flexible. They tend to have very fixed work requirements, work job descriptions, and that's all that's expected of them. I think your modern day, or the evolution of your pyramid organizational structure, is now moving towards a matrix organizational structure where you can have one person report to two different or three different entities. And the sole purpose for that is to ensure or to provide an environment where there's a bit of agility and nimbleness between the works being performed. And there's a lot of thinking now around how this matrix organizational structure is beginning to value and effectively value entrepreneurship and innovation within specific organizations. So Hasib, I hope that answers your question. It really depends, and you're absolutely right, it really depends on the culture that exists, but now it's less abstract, and there's a very fixed form, or there is a known formula in how companies can begin to value entrepreneurship and innovation within their workforce.
I think Hasib's question could potentially be addressed by me as well, if I were to think about CCIT experience. And these are the things that I did not know about at all. So the question, Hasib's question is a very informed question, if I may. And if 6 years ago, if I had known about these things, perhaps the trajectory would have been very different. Perhaps I wouldn't have done any of these things if I'd known about entrepreneurship and the challenges. But, so I think just what I'm trying to say is that not knowing at times is also fun. And you're just so open to anything happening, and you're willing to try things, and because you don't know. Now, if I had known about entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship and how to do things within a stale organization or an otherwise organization, then I might not have tried all of those different things anyways. I would say, okay, just keep doing what you're doing, your day job or my day job or my night job as an ER physician. So Hasib, certainly I think that you bring up a very interesting, very good question, and Rafi has given you a more wholesome answer than what I'm stating over here. There's a few more comments over here. So Mariam, so Ansul, just for you, Mariam Siddiqui is a pharmacist by training, and she was also part of our first batch of innovation fellows, and currently she's employed in another organization. And so she, because of a pharmacy background, she's saying people have desi pharmacies at home, and seen that especially for skincare remedies. So yeah, so that's a counter claim to yours. You cannot have inside, but she's saying you can. Call it a desi pharmacy then. So that's my take home. I'll just call mine a desi pharmacy and run with it. Okay, Eamon is asking, very good question. Can you share your journey to pitch your idea of QT Conscious in front of an investor? How did you do this? Have you done this? Pitched your idea to investors?
Actually, no, because the thing is that those, see, I work with a lot of global brands, and what they do is they approach me. So basically, I get away with not pitching myself because what they want, they need that expertise. So I come in when they require something advanced or when they require a product. So I come in, I help them, and I tell them that, look, it's going to take a long time. And they say that, no, we want to launch this product and we want to make millions of dollars. Can we do this real fast? I said, well, if you want to make a very simple kind of a remedy, like, so to speak, remedy, that's fine. We can, maybe in 6 months, we can get it out. But otherwise, it's going to take a couple of years to get a product that actually has advanced healing properties. So yes, you can actually have a Desi pharmacy. I mean, you can actually have those molecules. You can put something together really fast. But then if you go into things like regenerative molecules, things like retinol and retinol analogs, all these kind of different molecules, you do require a lot of time. So I don't really pitch myself, but then I have people coming to me, and then so that part is taken care of, thank God, because I'm not very good at pitching myself. I just basically am there and I help brands and I coach them, and that is basically my function. So I haven't come across that scenario, but if I have to pitch myself, well, that's what I'm going to say, that look, I have the years of experience, I have the passion, I have the expertise. Let's make something brilliant that is going to obviously generate revenue, but that is of course an aspect of business. It's going to generate revenue, but it's not going to it's going to sound pretty funny, but it's not going to skin people, because that's what I don't want. I don't want to create something that is going to be just hyped up and all that pseudoscience, and it's just going to make you young in 15 days and things like that. It's something that's going to take care of your skin and your well-being on a long-term basis. So that's what I can bring to the table. I can bring that expertise. I can guide the chemists. I can put in that level of experience that is required, and we can come up with something beautiful. And so they're very, very excited. And that's the journey that I have been going through from the past 15 years. And that's a journey where they come to the realization that, look, we want to make something good. We want to help the masses, but it is going to take time to come out with something that is advanced, that is efficacious, that is helpful, that is beautiful, and that is going to help people. So that is bottom line. And that's going to take time, because Rome wasn't built in a day, and certainly a good formulation is never built in a day. You can maybe put together something simple, but if you want to go into advanced cosmeceuticals, that's not going to happen. So that's what I do. And that's the way that I pitch myself. And then they just come on board, and then we just start our journey, whatever that journey is, small or big, because I help established big brands as well. And I also help many, many, many startups who are just starting from scratch. And so we just put everything down on paper and we began. So literally it begins on a piece of paper. I have like a brainstorm. I have some stuff floating in my head. I put it down, take it to the team, and then we start building upon it. So that's what I do. And so I hope that answers your question.
That was Eamon.
I think Eamon asked me this question.
I think that was brilliant. That was a great answer. And I was thinking Rafi would have called it a napkin sketch, perhaps. Your brain downloaded onto just a quick kind of like a mind map or something. And so Rafi does that with incubating. We're coming to the top of the hour, and so this has been really great. I just wanted to request actually Mohsen to kind of perhaps wrap it up for us. So Mohsen, what I would like you to comment on is your one-year experience of working with us as an innovation fellow, and now you're currently at NUST in Islamabad. What did you take away from? Hopefully, you took away several things, but like from an incubation perspective, if you want to keep it relevant or otherwise, what were a few things, maybe one or two things that you picked up from here, which have become very useful for you where you're at now?
innovation fellowship. Okay, so let me first quote that the degree that I'm currently doing, if not for innovation fellowship, I would not have pursued this degree. I would have gone for like something as typical MBA or something like that. But this innovation fellowship gave me enough confidence and enough knowledge that okay, you can pursue whatever you want to, and like you can make career out of it later on. You can do it. Just do what you want to do. Do what you like to do. That's the first thing. Hence the computational sciences. That's what I'm currently doing.
Did we lose Mohsen?
No, sir. Yeah, I think he may have cut off.
No, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We lost you earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, what I took from innovation fellowship over the year, working with the team and all, gave me this kind of sense of consistency and sense of responsibility and sense of reportability. So now earlier I was like, why do I have to report to anyone? Why do I have to be responsible for something? But now I have this sense that okay, there are structures in place. There are supposed to be your seniors. There are supposed to be people who are working there for you. So you are supposed to respond back to them. That's what this Notion Fellowship gave to me. And when it comes to incubation, the incubation thing, if one thing that I have taken from is that be consistent and diversify your assets. So diversify for the fields you're working on. Earlier, I was like, my startup was, my thesis was, my research, my FYP was all on the same thing. That was neural networks and like brain-computer interfacing. But now, after learning incubation at AKU, I have diversified myself. Now I am willing to be part of, let's say, even if it's a candy shop, I would be, if I think it's interesting, I would invest in it. I would invest my time in it. I would invest my mental energy in it. Earlier, I wouldn't have done that. So that's all thanks to CCID.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Endorsement, please लिख के भेज देना तो हम लोग फिर अपने
Sure, boss. Sure, boss.
सोशल मीडिया और हमें नर्स के साथ एक मीटिंग करा दो भाई. हम लोग कह रहे थे कि किताब ही पिच कर दें उधर. आप you could be in the front, in the lead, and then we could like just kind of waving in the backdrop or something. So yeah, go ahead.
Actually, when it Nust I say that I come from AKU, people are like, boss, हमें connect करवा दो. We want data, medical data, and all that. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll look into that. So
Well played, Mohsen. Well played.
there is possibility.
So Ansul, Eamon has a burning question for you which she hasn't put up there, but we're over
I'm
the
here.
hour. If Eamon, you want to go ahead and ask, and people who want to drop off, they can. Is that okay, no, Ansul? Because this is the last question. Go ahead.
Okay. So how can you compete with the branded products such like a L'Oreal Ponds? Like L'Oreal recently launched the hyaluronic acid product. So how can you compete, or what's the strategy behind that? You compete with the some branded like the Body Shop and the things. How can you compete with these products?
Okay. So yes, of course, it's highly competitive. You have like a gazillion brands out there now. Before, in my time, we had Rock and Neutrogena, and that was like the holy grail. Everybody was Rock and Neutrogena, and all my professors, we all used to just prescribe Rock and Neutrogena to everybody. But now, because everything has become so accessible, and in this modern time and age, it's quite easy to get into this business. So what I say is that, look, it's not about competition as much as it is about your integrity. So what is your brand philosophy? What are you really trying to achieve? So is your goal just to make a lot of money, or is your goal to have something out there that is going to really be effective? So how we compete is that, for instance, if L'Oreal has come out with a hyaluronic acid, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that INCI list and find out that, okay, this is what they've used. I'm going to step it up, and I'm going to use, for instance, multi-molecular hyaluronic acid, because that one kind of hyaluronic acid, it's a really giant molecule. It doesn't penetrate the skin. So you just apply it on your skin, it stays on the top. How are we going to elevate that? We're going to take a different kind of hyaluronic acid. We're going to have it fermented. whatever method that we choose. Fermentation is usually biofermentation. We're going to break it down, make it into different molecular weights. So when you add that into a formulation, you will see instantaneous results. And so what happens then is when you put that product out in the market, people are just going to apply it and they're going to say, wow, we were applying like L'Oreal, and then we applied brand XYZ. And this like helped us in like 2-3 days. Our skin is more plump and soft. How did this happen? Well, this happened was because perhaps they are putting in billions of dollars, but they are a mass. It's like a big global company. So maybe they just want to use that kind because it's more cost effective. The brands that I work with are very independent and a lot of them have really great investors and stuff. So we can get away with really advanced molecules that are quite expensive. Some of them are and some of them are not. But then what we do is add those different molecules that really have benefits. So this is the edge that I give them. So I give them that capability of adding those things that are going to be so effective that it's going to kind of, that you're going to throw away that cream and just say that we're just going to apply this. So that's a little bit challenging because now there's so many brands out there. Everybody is claiming and you have all those hyped up claims. So how are we going to be different? How are the brands that I work with? I'm going to infuse integrity and I'm going to give them something solid. So usually that really helps because some of my brands have gone now into the $2 billion revenue. And that was only because we stayed close to our principles and we kept our integrity and we used the highest quality of materials that we could. So that would set us apart from the other brands. I mean, I hope that made sense.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Most
Vasanth.
welcome.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Okay, I'm still here. My computer hasn't died as yet, but it's about to. But I think this has been fabulous. I really, really do thank and appreciate the time that the three of you gave to us. And while I was, with Marine, while I was thinking about, how do we connect? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe not, maybe yes, I don't know. Dekh lete, experiment hai. So this was kind of an experiment as well. And we put the three of you together, and I think it's really worked well. Yeah, that's just my opinion, but I hope the rest of you also feel similarly. And thank you once again. And all the best till the next time. And the next time is Monday, by the way. Monday ko ho raha hai, wo special session. So see you on Monday.
Thank you, everybody. It was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Asil, and thank you so much, Dr. Ansel. It was great to do the session with you. And
Thank you
Mohsin.
so much, Rafe. Thank you, everybody. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Bye-bye.
Hafiz.
Bye. Bye, everybody.